Welcome to the Vandy Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Lee. Our guest today is Willy Daunic of 102.5 The Game. This episode is title sponsored by the Well Coffee House, which turns coffee into water. The Well is a coffee house with a mission to bring clean water to the world. To date, over 30 communities across the globe now have access to safe water, health, and hope. You can also make an impact by visiting a Well Coffee House location today. There are 4 in the Nashville area that can be found in Green Hills, Brentwood, downtown, and Bellevue. You can find more information at wellcoffeehouse.org. The Well Coffee House, where coffee changes lives. We also thank our co-sponsor, Wellspire, Nashville's Learning and Development Center, which is located in the Gulch. Today's news presented by our friends at Sutherland & Belk, a local injury law firm committed to helping those who have been injured in accidents. If you or someone you know has been in a wreck or other accident, reach out to Sutherland & Belk and see what your rights are. You can find their contact info at sbinjurylaw.com. Vanderbilt beats Buffalo 90-76 in a basketball game on Tuesday night. Big rebound win for the Commodores after they lost to Tulsa over the weekend. Saban Lee scores a career-high 25 points. Other Commodores in double figures include Aaron Nesmith with 16, Cleavon Brown with 14, and Max Evans with 13. Vanderbilt now 6-2 on the season. Our guest line is presented by Boll & Branch, started by Vanderbilt graduates Scott and Missy Tannen. I've slept on their sheets for years and loved them. Had no clue how comfortable they could be until I got them. They are fair trade certified, so they're made under safe conditions by men and women treated and paid fairly. You can try them for a month and return them for free if you don't like them, but trust me on this, you will not want to do that. Once you get the sheets, try the mattress. That was voted the best mattress of 2018. Go to bollandbranch.com, enter the promo code Vandy, and get $50 off your first set of sheets. Willy Daunic of 102.5 The Game joins us now. Willy, of course, a former Commodore baseball and basketball player. Willy, we missed you last week in the midst of holiday busyness and all those things. We are grateful that you were back and hope that you were doing well.
Doing very well, and now in that, and I can remember this time as a basketball player, the nebulous in-between Thanksgiving break, final exams, Christmas break are always an interesting time of the basketball season. So we're kind of in that mode now.
I would think that would be a tough time for a player because you're getting ready for exams and final projects. You've got the distraction I guess you don't really get to go home anymore if you're a player, but maybe family comes in town, those sorts of things. I would think that's a challenging situation to manage anywhere, and especially if you are at Vanderbilt.
Yeah, I think that's true. I can remember back in my playing days, you didn't really get to go home for any of the breaks. That's the bummer about the calendar of a college basketball season, that you didn't really get any significant time for Thanksgiving break. You didn't get any significant time for Christmas break, and also spring break, because that's when usually the March Madness is going on. The SEC tournament usually falls right in there somewhere. So either way, you're hoping maybe to duck in 1 or 2 days, maybe 3 at the absolute most, that you can actually go home during any of those breaks. So you get very used to it. For us, it used to be we would go over and stay, and the women's team would be there for basketball, and the swim team would be over there. So we would just take up residence in the Holiday Inn because they would kick us out of the dorms at the time. They would shut down all of the dorms on campus. And so that had its perks for sure. It was certainly different, but it's very unique in terms of that compared to a lot of other teams.
Let's stick with basketball. We will circle back to the chancellor announcement today and discuss that briefly, but let's talk hoops. Vanderbilt comes off, I think, its best game of the season in a win over Buffalo. You got to watch it. I was there. Jerry Stackhouse was encouraged, and I think both of us were as well.
Yeah, I looked going in on paper, the way Buffalo has had success over the last few years, and I thought that would be a really good test. And then, of course, before you even know it, they're down 10-1, and you're thinking, oh boy, they're really in for a tough challenge here. But for them to have pretty much complete control of the game by the end of the first half and then never really be challenged in the second half, I thought that was a very consistent performance. Now, I don't know if I was as impressed with Buffalo as I thought I might be. They've had some coach turnover there. They've had a lot of magical success. I shouldn't say magical, but they've had a lot of success with transfers. Maybe that's a tough turnover every year. I didn't think they played particularly great defense. They played a fast, loose game, in my opinion, but I give Vanderbilt full marks for really executing and making the shots. They distributed the ball well, and I thought when they needed to get big stops on defense, they did.
Yeah, and one thing that I liked about the performance last night, one thing that Bryce Drew's teams were not, in particular last year, was resilient. I thought this team did not play particularly well against Tulsa, and I'll give Tulsa a lot of credit. I think the matchup zone that Tulsa threw at Vanderbilt had a lot to do with that. I would think they would see that down the line. I'm sure that's something they will work on. But Saban Lee came off one of his worst games. He had 7 turnovers. Last night he comes in the ball game, and just right away he gives him this huge lift. He winds up with a career-high 25 points. That was one thing that was very encouraging. That and the fact that Aaron Nesmith did not score the first 15 minutes. So they were able to have a comfortable halftime lead despite getting nothing from Nesmith most of the first half. And then they got a bounce back from the guy that I think most of us would consider their second best player.
I agree. And I thought the first part of what you said in terms of Nesmith, I think that's going to be a question throughout the year, is can they score enough if Nesmith is not getting his 20 to 23 points a game, which is right around where he's averaging. I mean, he's been very consistent so far in getting the numbers. And last night, as you said, he went through a bit of a drought, and they still found offense from other sources. I think that's going to be important because Nesmith, as good as he is, I think it's hard to expect that there won't be nights where that does happen. So can they find other ways to score? It certainly helps with Saban Lee. That was a Saban Lee kind of game. There were driving lanes there. He is very tough to stop one-on-one if you create some space for him. And then when he's hitting the outside shot, which I know he hit at least 1 3. You'd have to go back and tell me if he hit any more. But if he can keep you honest, hitting that 3-point shot, he becomes a very good. It just leaves not a whole lot. You just need the role players to play their role, and you can be competitive.
One dynamic I am watching is guard rotation play. I think we know that Aaron Nesmith is going to get 35 minutes or so most nights. If it's a blowout, he's going to get less. But if it's a big game against a really competitive team and it's close, Aaron's going to be in there more often than not. Saban Lee, we know, will probably be second on the team in minutes. But from there, it's starting to get a little dicier for me. And you're probably thinking, well, that's an odd thing to say because we haven't talked about the starting point guard yet in Scottie Pippen Jr., who's been good. But when I watch him, and sometimes this can be selective, like sometimes you cannot pay attention sometimes, and sometimes you can pay too much attention and have confirmation bias. But I locked in on him 3 times on defense last night, and all 3 times, once his guy got into the lane, he just got blown by for a layup. I noticed last night he played 21 minutes and 33 seconds. You saw Isaiah Rice come in the game in the first half, which never happens. You saw Max Evans play really well last night. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on the way that Scottie Pippen Jr. defends, and if there might not be a little bit of a shakeup in the minutes there and how those are handed out night in and night out due to that.
I think it's going to be a matter of how much Scottie Pippen improves from now throughout the season. I do think that that's something I identified in some of our first, looks at the season, Chris, that I do think he's number one, he's a freshman. He's a little undersized in terms of just physical strength right now. And he is not what I would call a jet in terms of, especially defensively, just getting out and really being able to pressure the ball. I do think he's vulnerable to, the combination of older point guards who can get into the lane. I think that those will be tough matchups for him some nights. Now, the one thing I would say about him is he's very crafty. I think he's got some very good basketball sense. I think he's got a great ability to see the floor. His timing of passes when he drives and dishes, I think, is very good. And so he's going to have nights where he turns it over some, but and he gets caught up in the air sometimes. He'll get into the lane and hang in the air. That's a dangerous game to play when the competition level rises. But hopefully these are just things he'll learn. I think he's a smart player. Hopefully the strength comes along. And I think there are some nights, and I think you've seen Jerry Stackhouse realize that there are some times and some matchups where you want to use Max Evans' ability to play defense on the ball. And Evans played a really strong game last night. That was his kind of game. He was getting to the rim, crashing for offense. He got himself some easy buckets, and he did his thing on defense.
Yeah, there were two more players I wanted to talk about specifically. He was one of them. Evans goes 18 minutes and 52 seconds. He scores 13 points, has 6 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 turnover, and was +3. I think he had 3 or 4 dunks. A couple of those were maybe off offensive rebounds. I just thought that we have spoken about their need to find complementary role players who can step up on certain nights. I thought that Max Evans got an A in that regard against Buffalo.
No question. Last night, full marks for him and Cleavon Brown. Here's a couple of things on those guys, Max Evans and Cleavon Brown. Right? They've been in the program for a long time. If you've watched them play, you do not look at either one of those guys and say, there's a shooter from the outside. However, both of them have had some success hitting threes so far. So that's something I want to see is when you're trying to say, okay, what's the maximum you can get out of these guys? Can they hit the occasional open three? You don't want them taking 5 or 6 threes. You certainly don't want to have them take contested threes. But can they make one if Saban Lee breaks down the defense and his man doubles? I think that's the important thing for Evans and for Brown. Can you be a threat? If Neesmith and Lee can create double teams and matchup issues. So far, they've been able to chip in. It looks like they've made some progress in that area. And sometimes you see that with college players. They're older. They've been working hard. And the game's maybe slowing down for them a little bit. That's something I'm going to be watching.
The other guy is Jordan Wright. And to be honest, the first few times I saw him, I did not really understand the use of the scholarship there. He was not a very highly regarded player. I think he went into May without having signed anywhere. And he was a 3-star. He scored a lot, rebounded a lot in high school. So he had some good numbers, but I just did not see these standout tools at this level. Still not sure I do in a way, but the guy keeps earning court time and seems to be doing a good thing or two every time he's in there. Here's one stat from the Buffalo game that I don't know that anybody has discussed. He plays 16 minutes and 43 seconds, and he has 4 steals in that game. Also has 6 points. So the steals number, that's a lot of steals in those minutes. That's a kid that just continues, to me, to grind it and to earn playing time, and I'm presuming that he's doing some things that we are not noticing that Jerry Stackhouse notices to get that playing time also.
I'm going to put him right now in the category of freshman who's getting valuable time to develop. I think at this point, realistically, is he going to, have a great season where he's super consistent and doing the same things every night? Probably not. I think he's going to have some games where he does some good things. I think that's what you're hoping for if you're Jerry Stackhouse. And I think you probably say the same thing about Dylan Dessou. I think freshmen are going to have their ups and downs unless you're in that category of a Darius Garland or just one of these, superstar guys that are unusual, especially at Vanderbilt. I think you have to realize that they're going to make some mistakes. You hope that they weed them out during the course of the season. And the great thing for those guys is they're going to get chances, right? They're going to get opportunities to play. I guess, what certain nights, maybe Moyer plays a little bit more. other nights, maybe Dessou and Wright get a few more minutes. But hopefully you're getting enough from your bench that you can find 5 or 6 guys that keep you in the game collectively.
Yeah, and one other guy, I think you mentioned Abena briefly there. Last night, he had one foul in 16 minutes, not putting up a ton of numbers, but just getting on the court and staying out of foul trouble for him is a big thing right now. And you do see flashes of things in terms of scoring. So that is one thing that I keep noticing from him is he's not dominating games, but you've got to stay on the floor and then take that step. And right now he's doing a great job of just staying on the floor and helping them in little bits.
Yeah, you're talking about Educate.
Yes.
Oh, no question. I've been watching him very closely. To me, he's a very intriguing player. He's a little bit older than Dessou and Wright, and I think that's a valuable thing. And so you're absolutely 100% correct. When you go on the road in the SEC and you're going to face some of the guys you face, I think Obina has got the type of body that can hold his own. I think there's going to be some nights where physically it's just going to be tough on Dessou and Wright without the support. So Cleavon Brown's got to have a great year for them to take a big step forward here. There's no question about it. Because he can elevate. He's older. He's stronger. He can rebound some. It's a given that he's got to play well. And then I think Obina, if he can be that 10 to 12 minute guy in the role of, let's just take a couple of guys from past Vanderbilt teams, like Ted Skuchas was later in his career, that guy that you can just bring off the bench, going way back to my era, a Brian Milburn or a Chris Woods, just solid guys that are going to play good post defense. They're going to rebound. They can challenge shots. If you can do that without fouling, if you just catch and lay it in when you're all open, and maybe you get a stick back dunk, that's all you need. You don't need those guys to do a whole lot more.
I'm going to go ahead and go to the mailbag for a hoops question, then we will circle to the Chancellor discussion. Our mailbag is sponsored by Vanderbilt fan and independent insurance agent Josh Minton of Brentwood. Do you need an insurance agent who wants to know your unique needs and circumstances and will tailor an insurance plan to fit them? Josh is your guy. Call him 615-933-1979. Email him at josh@hqinsurance.com. Follow him at facebook.com/JD Minton HQ. He is my agent. Give him a shot. I think you'll be pleased. Josh has been a real help to me in my insurance needs. Ann Arbor, I like this question, by the way, says, for Willy, as someone who has played Division I basketball, what traits or competencies do you look for in a basketball coach, and how would you assess Coach Jerry Stackhouse in those areas?
Well, it's early, and let's just take the, you have to be able to get good players part of it out of there. I mean, that goes without saying, right? Your ability to get good players that fit your system is something that's very, very important. I have no experience in that. But here's my observation of Jerry Stackhouse, and we've talked about this before. I love his demeanor on the sideline. I just love not yelling and screaming on every play or yelling at the refs on every play. He's very calm and reserved, and yet intense, right? I think that's the combination that you're looking for. I like that. He has a presence in the huddle and on the sideline. I like that. And I also look for, when there are certain situations, does the team know what it is they're doing? And what kind of details do you see? So far, so good on that. Now, I think the next level that I'm looking for is once scouting reports start flowing through the league and you start going around the league a couple of times and the other teams start to know what you're doing, and they start to get very familiar with how you're trying to go about it. What are the wrinkles? How well can your team execute against those teams? I think that's the next level that we haven't seen yet because they haven't gone around the league yet. But I do think the team has played hard. I think that they've shown a good ability. Their spacing on offense is good. I think they're teaching defense well. Their attention to detail last year had fallen off in all of those categories. The little things really caught up to that team last year, and then all of a sudden they collapsed, right? The roof caved in. So far, I think there's a much better foundation, at least for this particular team, on some of those little things that become very, very important in games. But the confidence level, I think, will be challenged once the level of competition starts going up.
I don't know how much chance you get to watch his press conferences, but his answers to questions are as helpful and detailed as probably any coach that I have ever dealt with. I feel like you were getting almost a basketball clinic when you sit in on those.
Yeah, I that's very refreshing because there are coaches that go with the Bill Belichick theory, and that is the less you say, the better. But he doesn't appear to be like that. Now, he's new at this, and so, is that how he's going to keep going? I hope so, because you're right. I think it's always refreshing for the media and for the people that get to watch it. And let's be honest, any fan now, with the way that these things are streamed, can watch every press conference as if you're a member of the media. It used to be that you could only read the quotes in the newspaper that made it to the print. You don't get to hear the whole discussion. But I do think if you sit there and listen, there's some things you can really learn from Coach Stackhouse and what he's trying to do.
Let's talk the chancellor search. It has come to an end today. Vanderbilt now has a chancellor. I know that you've been busy with stuff, and I have been too. I've been getting some text messages and things. But any impressions on, and good grief, I'm going blank. I don't have his name in front of me, but the new chancellor.
Yeah, and I was going to ask for your help on how you pronounce his name. But I've only read the bio. I saw the release. The first thing that pops out to me is that he has been at a couple of schools that are the same type of profile as Vanderbilt from an athletic standpoint. I mean, let's take he's a fit for the school as a whole, as a given. With all the aspects that you're looking for, if you're a sports fan and that's your main area of emphasis, then they weren't going to bring in Dr. J, right? A guy that so you knew there's going to be. So you're looking for clues on how well can he relate jumping into Vanderbilt and to Nashville, and does he feel like athletics is a priority? I think that's what everybody's going to want to know. He was at Northwestern for a long time, so I think that's a good perspective to have in what a Northwestern faces as challenges in a league like the Big Ten. There's some similarities with what Vanderbilt faces with the SEC. He was at Stanford for a while. That's also another parallel that people make a lot of time. So, to me, I don't have any real background with Nashville as a city, which I think could have been a bonus if he had spent some time here before, just getting a feel for how you connect the Vanderbilt community with the Nashville community, because it may sound easy, but it's probably not as easy as it appears. But we'll see. But I think the major question, especially in the immediate next few months with football, is how quick can Malcolm Turner connect and start moving his plan forward, given that this gentleman is not going to take office until the summer. Can they get started on some of the stuff that they want to do?
By the way, it's Daniel Diermeier. I believe that's how you pronounce it. That was wonderful show prep on my part there. I've only done hundreds of these, and you would think I might know that by now, but apparently I did not. In any case, the indications that I have gotten early is there's going to be an early level of engagement with the AD that I think has been just severely lacking, really, with most of their chancellors, especially with the last one. I mean, really anybody other than Gordon Gee, that's just kind of a complaint that you've always heard. And I do believe that sports will be, I'm not going to say at the forefront of his plans. That might be overstating it. But if you look at the video that Vanderbilt put out today, and I'm sure this was done ahead of time. I'm sure it was intentional with what it showed. I'm sure they had a while to get this together, but there were scenes from Hawkins Field, or maybe not scenes, but shots of Hawkins Field and from Memorial Gym. And I have to think that was intentionally done in a minute that I think lasted, or a video that lasted like a minute and a half or less. I would have to think that was strategic on Vanderbilt's part. And I would have to think that is very good news, not knowing anything else, at least an encouraging sign for what could be ahead.
Well, going back through history, I think we know this too. This guy has an opportunity in the next now. Whether he chooses to do it now or wait till the summer, it would be smart to do it now. He could cut if he wanted to. He could get in front of the Nashville media, especially in particular the sports media, and just make sure that he lets people know. Yeah, this is everything's important to me. The science department, the psychology department, all of the things that make up a great university. We want to be first class in everything, and we want to be first rate in athletics. If he did that, he would go a long way, I think, to getting off on the right foot, and in the process helping out Malcolm Turner and what he wants to do. You know, I don't think he can just come and snap his fingers and say, "Here's the checkbook. Start digging, start building, start spending whatever you want." But I think just the attitude that absolutely happened with Chancellor Gee. Right, the minute he came in, he went on all the sports talk shows, including the one I was on at the time, and he told anybody that would listen, "I love athletics." And then he backed it up. Right, he was playing the band. You know, he would jump in with the school band, and he would come to all the games, and he showed that he cared. And that was so refreshing at the time, and it really helped the image.
It is really a low bar for the chancellor to clear right now. I think Vanderbilt fans are just dying for any morsel of encouragement at this point.
I agree. Because right now, you know, for the football outlook, I think they need some immediate answers, some things that they can cling to go sell, to try to keep moving forward here, because we know the season didn't go well. And right now, what do you have to sell if you're Derek Mason? It would be nice to say, well, we've got a new chancellor, we've got a new athletic director, and here are the fun coming attractions that we have in front of us the next few years that are going to make an impact, that are going to have an influence on some good football players that are out there, good student athletes that want to come to Vanderbilt to start winning games and having a great experience.
Is the timing of this at all interesting to you? And I may be grasping for something that does not exist, but the thing that I keep hearing is the strategic plan has to be approved by the board and the chancellor. I'd heard they were close to naming a chancellor. I figured it might be after the calendar year turned over. I think the plan goes to the board for approval, and I think they're hoping to get that back no later than Valentine's Day. I don't know specifically if there's a target date yet, but here's what I'm getting at. The chancellor announcement came a little bit before I thought. I don't think they're going to structure all that around athletics and the urgency to get something out there, again, for a fan base that is dying for anything. But it does give me pause for some thoughts there.
Right. And sometimes I have to remind myself, like probably a lot of Vanderbilt athletics fans. I mean, I'm a graduate of the school, and still sometimes I see it only through the prism of, you know, it's got to revolve more around sports than it actually does. Like I do have to remind myself sometimes there are a lot of other things going on the campus besides the athletic program, but just the ability to sell that it's going to be on the list. You know, it's going to be something that is prioritized and valued as a strong athletic program can mean good things for the university. We want to do everything well. And as you kind of point out, the quicker that they can implement some of this stuff, the better it is, particularly for football, because there's an urgency there.
Willie, do you have any parting thoughts before I let you go today?
Not at this time. I think we'll wait and see. I think the coming weeks will be very interesting on the court, see how the basketball team does, and then in the next few months between now and signing day with football recruiting, you know, what transpires.
He is Willy Daunic of 102.5 The Game. Willie, give out your Twitter handle, where your shows are, anything else that you were involved with that you would like to promote before we end the episode today.
You got it. Well, first and foremost, I do the play-by-play for the Nashville Predators. So our next broadcast will be Saturday night. PK Subban comes back into town with the New Jersey Devils, so that will be Saturday night for the Predators. You can watch our games on Fox Sports Tennessee. And I'm part of the ESPN radio crew, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on 102.5 The Game locally. And our show does a lot of Vanderbilt athletics. Mitch Light joins us every Tuesday to talk college sports. So we'll be transitioning into basketball before too long. But obviously college football is first and foremost right now. And then you can follow me on Twitter, Willy D1025.
Willie, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to grab you again next week.
You got it.
He is Willy Daunic of 102.5 The Game. I am Chris Lee, the host of the Vandy Sports Podcast. Thank you for listening. We'll catch you again with one more episode this week and more to follow next.